You are listening to the Taps and Teas Show, weekly conversations for people passionate about marketing, golf, and craft beer. Marty is the co-founder of Bad Rhino, an award-winning digital marketing agency helping golf and craft beer brands get real results in social media marketing. Here is your host, Marty McDonald.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Taps and Teas. Today's episode is going to be about organic and what organic means in social media. And it's a hot topic depending on the day, let's put it that way. But it's a common question that we get all the time. Every time we kick off a new campaign, we bring on a new client. And it's like one of those things that you have to tell the truth. And you want to make sure that everything is rolling along. And I'll talk about integrity and selling in another episode. But let's get into organic and what this, I hate to call it a rant. I think this podcast is going to be a little technical. In this episode, it's going to be a little bit of a gripe, but it'll definitely be educational as well. And we want to talk about it in a way that leaves you with something that you can go do in this one. And this is probably going to be the only one of these first 12, 15 episodes that's going to dive into a little bit of technical stuff. So let's jump in. Let's first describe what the organic idea means here and what we're talking about. There's tons of different things that are out there. Tons of different things that are trying to sell you on, let's increase your reach, let's get you more clicks, more website traffic, whatever. But the big thing on social is making sure that you're building an audience and making sure that you're communicating with that audience. So let's talk about that one main thing. That's traffic. And there's two different ways to get it. One is quote unquote organic and the other one is paid. And we're only going to lump this into two things. I know other people that will be listening to this podcast will be like, well, Marty, there's tons of other different ways that you can get traffic, SEO and everything else. Will be like, well, let's just hold on. We want to talk about social media. And most of the time, referral traffic from social media is pretty high for large businesses and even smaller businesses when you break it all down. Sometimes it accounts for about 40 to almost 50% of the traffic. So social media has matched and in some cases surpassed search engines as a means to reach a large and relevant audience. Now that, like I said, we're going to focus just on social media. That's what we do at Bad Rhino. So when you look at where your referral sources are coming from, it should be in one of two categories. Hey, we paid for this person to take a look at it, or it was organic, quote unquote. So when you take a look at everything, when you post something on Facebook, people were like, well, I don't want to pay this. I want to make sure that they see it and I want them to be educated by it, or I want them to possibly, inquire about my services. So organic, that's the number of people who see your content without paid distribution. That's people that are showing your posts as well as your Facebook page. Paid advertisements, those reach the people who see your content as a result of paid promotions. Simple as that. Organic, not paid, people see it. Paid promotions, that's going to be influenced by ad targeting options, can also impact your organic reach, but I don't want to get too technical in all this. So why do I bring this up in a podcast? Many times we'll get a client that's new, and in the early stages, they're like, well, we don't want to do paid advertising, which makes me laugh a little bit on the inside now. But what they want to do is they always have this dream of having everything organically. And it's not that simple. The way things work on social media, how people engage with your content has a lot to do with reach. But a lot of the things that Facebook's trying to do, they're trying to get rid of organic reach in a way. Now, don't panic. It's not going to be all pay for play, but that's really a big part of it is where you get strategic about how you put ads out there so that everything works really well. Back in, it was about 2016, end of 2015, Facebook put in a big thing where you saw organic reach drop by, it was like 50% or a little bit over 50%. And people were like, all right, so what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to tell you right now that organic reach number, when it dropped by 52%, is continuing to drop. And that's something that you need to be aware of, that it is a pay to play type network, especially for businesses. So why is the Facebook organic reach declining? Well, number one, there's a lot more content that's being published on Facebook. There's a newsfeed space for it. There are billions of pieces of content published every month on Facebook. And Facebook wants to provide an experience that provides, let's say the most relevant content. There's going to be things that sneak by, which will be good and bad, but you still want to take all this into account. So the reason I tell you that and go into a little bit more depth of, why it's declining is when you do reach out to whether it's a company like Bad Rhino or somebody else that's handling your social media, you got to understand somewhat of how this is going to work, because you can't just sit there and not pay for ads and not pay for really good content. And what I mean by pay for the content is have it created properly and not have a strategy and think it's all going to work, because it's not, because the organic reach is just declining. So when new clients or potential clients ask, like, we want to do this organically, like this pipe dream, like, I don't know anything else that's so organic that people are just going to naturally find it and you're going to get a treasure trove of leads and then sales from it. Let's just be realistic here. You want to make sure that you're combining good content and good posts so that you do get some organic reach, but then you want to buttress that with a paid ad strategy. Make sure that you always have a little bit of both, because it is important to have organic. So the one thing that you need to take a look at is, what are you currently doing? Are you just posting a handful of things? Or are you just posting, without a strategy? Because that's going to really hurt some of those pieces. Then when you start to look at it, where are the missed opportunities? Where are certain things that we can interject pieces of a paid ad campaign into that so that everything starts to work? And you want to attract potential buyers. You want to funnel them into a sales funnel, or even just a phone call, or a quick way to get some sort of activity that you can start to measure ROI for your time, money, and effort. But you want to make sure that all this is working in conjunction. So I bring it up in this podcast is, the title of this is Organic Doesn't Work. That's true, and it's not true. It's true if you have an existing audience, that it will work. If you have an existing audience that just loves your stuff, that's really going to make sure that they're going to be engaged with your content or your category, you want to make sure that don't discount organic. That's not what I'm saying here. But if you're not using any paid strategies, this just becomes a giant mess. Facebook wants to have an experience for their users, okay? So the organic thing is going to get a lot of love if you're doing it right. If you're doing it wrong, guess what? Facebook's going to penalize you with that algorithm, and that stuff's not going to be shown. So it takes a little bit of time to really map that out. You need to have a content strategy, and you need to have a paid strategy behind that. It doesn't mean that, hey, it's only pay to play. It's really understanding how this Facebook newsfeed algorithm really works. There's hundreds of thousands, probably millions at this point, that decide which posts show in a user's newsfeed. If you go and you just Google what newsfeed changes there, you can start to see how the algorithm works. So there was 4 steps that I got from somewhere else that I can't remember where. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about them so you can go research them on your own. I'm not going to dive into them in this podcast because it'll take forever. We don't have forever on here. We just want to educate and move on and give you the best bites that you can get to help your strategy or help you decide what agency you might hire or who you want to work with. What you want to make sure that you do is how they determine this. Let's go back to that. When a Facebook user logs in, we're going to see a couple different things. What stories have been posted by your friends and publishers? Who posted that story? How likely, would you comment on that story? And what's a relevancy score? Now, don't want to go into each one of these things in here, but those are the types of things that Facebook has built into an algorithm. User gets on, they go and they take a look at it, so, okay, I'm in. So what's on this menu, so to speak? Then what types of signals am I sending by liking or commenting on it? And then there's a part of the algorithm that's more predictive. And then everything else kind of goes into the score. And that's how the algorithm works on a very base level. And that right there is about as technical as I want to get, because I bet you some of you are just scratching your head. And it's true. Just go and if you Google, how a Facebook algorithm works, there's a ton of articles out there. Just make sure you're looking at one that's close to whatever date that you're listening to this podcast.
Hey, if you're enjoying what you're hearing on the show and want more, head on over to tapsandtees.info and get our free report with game-changing tips and strategies straight to your inbox. Just enter your info and stop being stuck with no marketing plan.
There's a lot of other things that do come into play. And one of the things is like how useful the post is. If you're worried about it on the business side, if you're getting negative feedback on the post, that can push it down. So it's very interesting and it's very complex. So when we say organic doesn't work, is most people don't take any of the factors into this about when they're creating content. They'll be like, if they're a restaurant, they're like, all right, let's just post a picture of this special, or let's post a picture of this event that's happening. And they do it, on no timetable. They have no content calendar, no strategy, and no ad strategy. So when I say organic doesn't work, when you don't have a strategy, it really doesn't work. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast. And I want to keep this one short because this is something that I could talk about for hours. And it's something that I think small business owners, and especially if you're in something like craft beer and golf, you're going to struggle with this if you don't have somebody focusing in on this one point of getting a content calendar done, getting everything in there, and making sure that things are working in favor of the algorithm rather than hurting you in the algorithm, because Facebook penalizes you. For example, if you post like 10 times in an hour, none of that content might be seen. And you may not know that. And you're just like, well, this isn't working. But here's the flip side. It also hurts your ad campaigns. So you might be saying, well, Marty, we absolutely have a mix of organic and paid, but we don't, when you don't have a paid strategy or an organic strategy and they're not working in conjunction, all of this could be for naught. And then you get disappointed because you're like, well, we tried social media, but it doesn't work. And that's what I mean by organic doesn't work, is the fact that you need to have a combination of the strategy, the organic strategy, and a paid strategy to make the algorithm dance for you. And let's work on that. Make sure you're putting that into whoever's handling your marketing. Make sure that they have this information in some way, shape, or form. One thing that a lot of people do that's really interesting and it's fun and it's good is that they come up with this whole thing and then they automate everything, right? Wrong. Because it makes it easier on you. You want to avoid automating everything. Can you automate some things? Yes. Do you want to do everything? No. It should show your funnier creative side within your marketing, but you don't want to automate it. You don't want to treat it like a robot, and too many people do. The one thing that when you look around organic is they just push one type of piece of content, and it's just like a picture or an update, and it gets tired. You have to show the creativity. You can automate it to take some things off of you, but you want to make sure that you're following something. And that's the whole point, is you're following something. So don't automate everything. You don't want to just sell, only promote your product or service. That's not going to be very good for you. You want to double check and make sure that you're not trying to cheat or trying to pay for likes by paying for all these likes, or trying to get clicks, or trying to do everything, by using like really crappy services that are out there. Don't try and do that to make something look good. You're going to waste a lot of time and money, and you're going to invite a lot of spam into your account. You want to make sure that when you're building your fan base and you building your community, that you can really handle what you're doing. I say this all the time. People are like, well, we should just have 10,000 people that like our golf course or our craft brewery. And I'm like, all right, well, how many customers do you have regularly and how many people come? And they'll be like, well, about 1,500 to 2,000, annually. Okay. And why do you need 10,000 people? If the people that are coming are maybe 500 to 700 really hardcore regulars, or somewhere in there that qualifies them as a repeat buyer over the course of the year, and then maybe 1.5 times those 500 to 700 people that are coming in, why do you want 10,000 people on your Facebook page? Why do you want to have a giant community? If your community is smaller and they're really attentive to what you do, you're really going to get a lot out of it. And that's the last thing there is not to try and build something that's 10,000 or 200,000 when you have your small little business somewhere. Now, larger brands and larger personalities and influencers are going to have larger ones, but don't compare yourself to that. You really want to make sure that instead of having a giant audience that doesn't listen to you, you have a hyper engaged audience that is working with you. So make sure you take all these things into account. You can Google some of these things and you can see it. But this is like the big question that we get. And I wanted to cover this in the initial blast of podcasts here, because the organic reach is dropping, but it's not completely dead. It's just how you make it work for you. And you also, through all of this, you always want to make sure that you track and analyze what you're currently getting before you jump into an ad campaign or jumping into something with a new agency or trying a new strategy. You want to make sure that you know which posts have the highest organic reach, what types of posts that your audience prefer, and the number of likes even on each post. And a simple audit at the very beginning of starting new campaigns or start of something new for your marketing can go a long way. And it's something that we rely on at Bad Rhino all the time. Is that's how we kick it off, is we want to audit everything so that you understand and we understand what's working and what's not before we get into defining a strategy, not only for organic, but also for paid as well on social, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. A couple of the quick things that you can do immediately to boost your Facebook organic reach. Let me just go over a couple, since I talked a lot negative about what's going on. You want to make sure that you understand who you're selling to and you want to target them. That's the very start of this, is make sure you understand what it is you're selling and who it is you want to reach, and create an avatar and talk to that person or a couple avatars and just talk to them normally. That's a huge part of just building and helping that organic reach. Take a look over the past couple months, what's really worked for you and what's been the best. What's really worked. It's like, wow, these couple of pictures or these events, that's what you want to focus in on and create more of that type of content. You want to look at it and say, wow, every time we post a picture that looks like this, we got a ton of likes and some comments. The other thing is publish stuff that's going to really work well for you. And even if it's something that's, quote unquote, like evergreen, which means you can use that at any time of the year, don't be afraid that you can use them again. So it's almost timeless, and that that these posts are going to work and something else is going to happen for it. You can reuse those things. And however you reuse them, whether you just share it back to your page or you create something a little bit different, make sure you know those things that can be something that you schedule all day, every day, so to speak. Again, you don't want to tire it out, but if you have 4 or 5 really good pieces that work, if you schedule them the right way, it can really increase your organic reach. You also want to make sure that whoever you're advertising to in your ads, mirrors that, especially at first. And then you can get into everything else. If you work with your most engaged audience members to, say, join a group that you're starting or come to an event, those are the types of things that would really work for you in terms of getting your organic reach back up. So this is a very complicated topic. I don't mean to confuse or try and do it, something like that. I just want to make sure that you listening to this understand that organic is kind of dead, but it's not dead completely. You need to be able to put a strategy together. And there's a lot of components. As we were just going over this over the last 15 minutes or so, you can hear there's a ton. And this podcast here, if you made it to this part, this one is the complex one. The rest of them are going to be pretty lighthearted. But this is a question that we get all the time. I've been getting it for years, is we want to reach organically. We don't want to feel like we paid. And people are confusing the two. People are confusing the part where the organic part is, something that's natural. It happens like referral. And that's true. They feel like if we always pay for something, we're going to get just lousy leads or we're cheating the system. That's not the case. They have to work together. And how they work together is setting a strategy for your organic, as well as putting a strategy along with your paid. You want to make sure that everything there is flowing together and working in conjunction. So that was a little bit about it. Organic doesn't work unless you have a paid campaign and a strategy behind it. I hope this is helpful. This is the one here, trying to keep it short, but it's a complex topic. So on the next one, we're going to talk about how you're affecting the community. And this is going to be a little bit different because we're going to jump out of online stuff into offline stuff. Hope you have a great day, and I look forward to speaking with you on the next episode of Taps and Tees.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.